Okay, awesome. Okay, so my next question is surrounding how does Google Analytics information influence digital fundraising in kind of that nonprofit space?
I mean, I can share a really quick example of something that happened with an organization earlier on. Probably this is back like kind of pre-2010, if you will. And we were talking with an organization, we were implementing analytics, and they were running two pieces of marketing. They were running paid digital advertising and magazine ads that went into the back of some magazines, kind of doctor's office type magazines. They looked at the traffic and they said, okay, well, clearly, because you have to think there was a point where we didn't know, pre-analytics, marketing was 50% guesswork, right? Like what's the saying? 50% of my budget is wasted. I'm just not sure which half. Like now we have a much better understanding of like, okay, well, where does our traffic come from and where do our conversions come from and that kind of stuff. In this example with this client, what they were like, well, our magazine ads are clearly not, they're not working because they're only driving like 5 or 10 people, right? And our digital ads are driving hundreds of people. So we must, they were going to make an investment decision. They were going to can the magazines. When we added e-commerce analytics, what we learned was, yes, the digital ads, these banner ads that you have out there are driving all kinds of traffic. Not one of them becomes a donor.
Wow.
And then on the flip side, the 15 people that are coming in from these magazines, every single one of them became a donor. So that level of insight was about to, without that level of insight, that organization was about to make a decision that they were going to guess which 50% of their marketing was working properly, and they would have made the wrong one based on a metric like just traffic, right? So it's valuable to have that kind of insight in your marketing, but you need to be able to see the contextual line all the way down, right? Like, so which traffic actually gives, and then you can make decisions about that. So
I love that.
That's one example.
Yeah, that's a great example too, right? Because I think we're all so quick to discount anything printed now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I shared it and everybody all laughed on my LinkedIn recently about this. Amazon sends out their like Christmas book for all the kids and everything. Mm-hmm. It's nuts in my house. They're still mm-hmm. talking about it. There's lists that have been made. There's pages that are like crumpling because they've been touched so much, right?
Yeah.
And I am one of the first people to absolutely have discounted the idea that a print matters, but mm-hmm. obviously it still does hold a lot of weight, and it could hold a lot of weight because lots of donors or your advocates for your nonprofit could really, that may be the thing that really influences them, and they're never going to be somebody who really is all over your website in that fashion, right? So they're never going to be the person who clicks a banner ad. I don't know the last time I clicked a banner ad anywhere, but
no,
that's
intentionally.
Just me, right? Intentionally, yeah. Accidentally, I definitely have, but with intentionality. So, okay, that's great. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, another thing I would add to that, just not because I can't help myself, is like with your print example, that catalog is full of QR codes and no pricing.
Yeah.
Right. And so those QR codes can all have, and like, yes, they can capture data. You can gather data through your QR tools. But if you're using like a free QR tool, you're putting something on your direct mail, you can actually attach those kind of key. So it's campaign, source, and medium, which are kind of like these key tracking parameters that you put on your links. And it gives you the way to see like, hey, turns out product 3 on page 2 or whatever, this QR code that we're giving is driving a ton of our traffic, and you can put all of that in a way that QR code is coming right through into Google Analytics. So you can do the same thing like that example I was saying earlier. We redirected people off of that magazine to a custom URL that when they hit it, just got a bunch of Google Analytics data parameters added to it, and then it kind of carried through in the background. So we knew that they'd come from that magazine ad specifically. But you have that ability with QR codes now. I mean, if there's one bright spot maybe that came out of the pandemic, it was for the founder of the QR code, who was nearly irrelevant. I mean, everybody at some point had tried to stick a QR code on something and no one ever looked at them. And now that's how we get our menus. Like there's so much, it's been such a shift in terms of the value of a QR code, and know that you can add those tracking parameters to QR codes in the same way that we do to like digital ads and things like that. And it helps you make decisions. It helps you make decisions on like, where do you spend? Where do you move I mean, this is something that Trevor and his team are looking at all the time, right? They're looking at analytics, they're looking at our platforms, and we're looking at like where should we be moving the media budget, right? Like if we're like, we're looking and saying like, we're getting all this great traffic and that traffic's valuable, but this traffic's more valuable. Do we move our investment over here, increase our return on ad spend, all that kind of stuff? I mean, that's where we can, start to see that data coming into Google Analytics. It's super, super helpful.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think there's even that interesting piece, going back to that crazy Amazon catalog, but even as a parent, I'm humoring them, scanning the QR code to find out how much it actually costs because everybody wants to know. But then you're sucked in and it actually takes you to, that page of the catalog, but you have access to the whole catalog. So what then is the page that sucks people in? Because that might be of value, right? There's so much. I mean, it's next level creepy sometimes where you can, how much information you can gather about a family based on, I'm sure they could probably tell me what are my boys' age. Well, maybe they don't know exactly, but I'm sure they're pretty darn close that they can figure out what age range those are in. And obviously there's so much about the nonprofit space with, huge respect and privacy and everything for donors, but that information is really, really valuable, right? That it just is. And it's interesting and it influences a sometimes very lean digital marketing budget as well. So how can you make the most of something like Google Analytics to support that? So, and had a little fun comment here, but Dominic, tracking QR codes. I think it's just something we're all not quite there on, right? And we're not quite to that next level. And that's where a lot of digital and marketing service folks are kind of just already in that space. So that's great. Anything to add there, Trevor, at all?
I think what we have found more recently as tracking in places like Facebook and Instagram become more, say, frustrating is a good word, is we're using analytics is still quite reliable, especially in the events that are set up because of the way that it's grabbing information. So certainly there's a degree to which analytics, we've shifted in the way that we're using analytics to reconcile against a lot of the ad platforms that have become more challenging. It certainly, I think it was done in past sort of passively, right? Where you would make sure what you were seeing on your donation form was appearing in analytics. But, I think for organizations that are looking to make faster decisions about their digital marketing optimization, certainly analytics has been a place that we've kind of resorted to as we've lost some of the trust that we've had in specifically places like Facebook and Instagram. And while, the conversion API in Facebook is supposed to be the solve all, it certainly feels like there's more trust to be had in some of those analytics numbers. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is that analytics in and of itself is a fantastic tool, but it works best when it's working in conjunction with a variety of other tools. One of the things that we use it most frequently for is user journey drop off. So where are people coming to on your website in their path to a conversion, and maybe what is the holdup to making an eventual donation or taking an action that we want them to take. And while we can sort of see where they're dropping off, what really provides a lot of value is having additional tools, something like Hotjar, for instance, that actually allows us to take a look at user sessions on the pages where we know things are maybe not functioning as they should, or they're not guiding people through to the next step of their user journey. So, using it as a tool and a sort of tool set of other softwares has certainly for us proven incredibly effective as we look to optimize websites and conversion funnels.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really great point too, Trevor, like what you were saying. Like there's so much that can be tracked. It really comes down to like, what does the organization want to know? Because, like you have so many different initiatives. And so it's, do we want to understand like, how is this investment working? How does this, how does traffic that comes from Twitter, how valuable is that compared to traffic that comes from Facebook? There's ways to look at the value of your traffic, and value doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. It can be, people, like Trevor said earlier, it can be an event like just people who watch the most of our content, right? Like if we're, yes, we want people to support the organization, but we also want to educate, right? And so if we can say, hey, these are education metrics, engagement metrics that we can measure, and then we can say, yeah, okay, sure, maybe, maybe we don't make a lot of money from our Twitter traffic, but, by God, do they consume our content, right? So as an organization, you might say, well, it's still worth that investment for even putting paid ads out there, because those people become really, really invested in our content. And as an organization, you can make a decision about whether that's valuable to you or not. The same can be said for things like content of your actual site. You can look at the content of your site, and there's, and again, a lot of these out of the box reports are good, but there's so much that can be done with the custom reporting side of analytics that you can say, hey, show me all of my content, and then tell me which page is the page before a conversion. Which page leads to people taking action? And that conversion can be monetary. That conversion can be, engagement. And there's so much that can be done in terms of like answering those questions. And the key is just to spend a little time up front, try to getting it set up. But then also just, as an organization, investing into, asking those types of questions and trying to get those answers, because, it might take a little bit of work to get that one piece of tracking just right, but it can be really, really valuable in terms of making the decisions that you want to make about where you do or don't invest, or, what content you keep, or what you need less of or more of, right? So there's so much that can be garnered from it.
I love that too, because I think, it's really simple to think of digital marketing and the end result being donations. And that's just the most common thing that everyone wants to measure, is that donations piece. But awareness is its own very complicated metric, right? Awareness or impact, or, and they're so nuanced, and the data behind it is so nuanced. And trying to take that Google Analytics information and even maybe using it towards grants. Like, I always have great conversations with Ansley Fender of Atlas Solutions, and she's really in that grant space and understanding it, and getting that information to go, oh, the awareness, because this video had this many views and this is what our nonprofit does, really could even be a metric to be used in granting, right? And what do you need to measure for your grants, and all of that piece. So that's great. I love that.